Hello everyone. Welcome to today's 12D Tech Forum 2024 Director's Cut webinar. My name is Lisa Stewart. This webinar series is designed to highlight some of the amazing content we wanted to include in our face-to-face event earlier this year, but which just didn't fit into the programming. Some presentations you'll see in this series were left out entirely, and others had to be cut short because we had too much content, which was a great problem to have. We'll be running these webinars until that excess material is exhausted and recording them for posting on our YouTube and Vimeo channels with links through our website 12d.com. Our previous webinars from this series, as well as those from our other webinar series, are available online if you missed those. During today's presentation, you'll be able to type your questions along the way, as shown on the screen, and we'll answer as many as possible throughout the webinar. At the end, I'll read out some of your questions to the presenter if there's time. Today's webinar is for the ALDE and 12d model Introduction to Land Development Design training course and will be presented by Cameron Lowe, who's the training manager here at 12D Solutions. ALDE, the Association of Land Development Engineers, is the peak body representing the interests of engineers in the land development industry operating in Victoria. In partnership with ALDE, 12D, through the Civil and Surveying Institute, has developed a self-paced online training course which aims to give new and experienced land development engineers an understanding of the various procedures, documents and standards required for land development in Victoria, as well as training in the most up-to-date and relevant 12D model tools. You'll hear more about this today. Over to you, Cameron.
Thanks, Lisa, and welcome everyone. So today I'll be going through and showing you all there is to know about the new ALDE, so the Association of Land Development Engineers, and 12D Model Introduction to Land Development Design training course. I'll be spending most of my time in the course itself, showing you around a little bit later on, but as a brief agenda, I really first just want to give a broad course summary. That shouldn't take any longer than 15 minutes. That gives you an understanding of why the ALDE course was created, what is included in each of the course units, and then what are the benefits to your business. So what are the benefits to you registering or registering your staff to the course? So what is the course attempting to achieve? After that, if you're interested to know the finer details of the course, we'll have an in-depth look at the self-paced online training or SPOT platform, as well as the course content, and we'll also discuss the different ways the course has been set up to be completed. So how it'll bring you benefit, not only the first time you go through the course, but also when you inevitably come back to revisit the information. Okay, so what is the ALDE and 12D Model Introduction to Land Development Design course, and why does it exist? So ALDE identified that the process of onboarding new land development engineers was being done very much individually by its member companies, and that process was therefore not a structured and standardized process across the industry in terms of typical processes and procedures being taught within land development. Okay, and then from the 12D model side of things, we've always sold software to the, software and training to the land development industry in Victoria, but we saw a partnership with ALDE as a real opportunity to support the industry specifically. And then also, of course, to showcase the most up-to-date tools relevant to land development specifically. So as a whole, the course is a way of sharing knowledge regarding industry best practices and delivering structured training that can be delivered across the entire industry, with an added intention of trying to take some of the burden away from senior managers in onboarding your staff. So the more of that can be done through this course, the more your senior staff can be working on projects and freeing them up. So the course that's been developed, as you'll see, follows a typical subdivision design from start to finish, and it's aimed at new designers to the land development industry, as well as, importantly, experienced designers. So really everyone has something to learn from this course. The course has 3 main units. The first being the Introduction to Land Development Design unit, which is the unit that has been produced by ALDE. And this one covers the subdivision process. So the procedures, background documents, standards and processes involved in subdivision design, with a focus on growth areas in Melbourne. From there, we then progress to Unit 2, which is where we begin using 12D model. And here we extract that key information from Unit 1, so from all those input documents and standards, to ultimately produce the road and finished surface design for the development. And then in Unit 3, again, extracting the relevant information from the various documents and standards, and also using that road and finished surface design from Unit 2, we again use 12D model to produce the stormwater design. Now, before I break down these 3 units a little bit more for you, I do want to specifically mention some key benefits of the course. So Units 2 and 3, as I said, use 12D model, and included in the course is access to a 12D model training license for 1 year. So what that means is that your company's licenses aren't being used by your staff as they go through the training course. So that in itself is worth thousands of dollars. The course is a self-paced course. So what that means is it's made up of pre-recorded videos, and there have been over 100 videos, or lessons as we call them on Spot, created specifically for this course. So it is an incredibly comprehensive course, and your staff or you get indefinite access to all these lessons. Okay, and each lesson we've aimed to go for about 15 to 20 minutes, but sometimes they're longer and sometimes they're shorter. 20 minutes is probably about the average. So there's just over 30 hours of 12D model training content in this course. Okay, and not only can you go through the whole course initially, but of course you can return to the course at any time and review the lessons. Again, importantly, alongside a data set, as I'll show you later. For each of the 3 units of the course, they each come with their own certification to indicate that the trainee has completed the content. So you can see that example of certificate on the right there. Additionally, for all the managers out there, you also have the ability to monitor your staff's progression through the course, and also view all the training material for yourself in your own Spot account. And that's just so that you're completely in the loop as to what's being covered in the course. Okay, and then I guess this is more of an industry-wide benefit, is that with this course, we'd like to think that we've laid the foundation on which we can produce additional units and also generate discussion between 12D and the land development industry in general to develop new tools within 12D specific to the needs of the industry. And that we're going to do based on the feedback we receive from the course. Okay, so now to break down a little bit further for you. Unit 1, which is again the Introduction to Land Development Design unit. The major draw card for this is the Introduction to Land Development Design Guidelines, which is a 108-page document that's been created specifically for this course, right? And this focuses on the theoretical aspects of land development. So it looks at, as I mentioned before, those key input documents and also the procedures and processes that land development engineers need to know, and breaks them down in the order they need to know them for a typical project. right? And I'll cover the chapters pretty quickly here, but if you'd like to see this in detail, then I'll show you the contents page of the document later on. So the chapters covered are the land development process. So this covers all the way from due diligence through to receiving titles. So what are the things that need to happen to get there? So things like permit applications, master planning, functional design, detailed design, tendering, that whole process is covered in that chapter. Then we have functional layout plans. So in here we do a deep dive into what is actually presented on the functional layout plans. And importantly, where do we get all that information from? So what are those documents we're extracting the information from? Where does that information come from, and who creates that? So it gives the trainee a full perspective on who the other players in land development are and what are their responsibilities in the land development process. From there, we progress to water design. So this is where it's discussed which standards apply and where. So there's discussion around the MRWA and then also the authority processes. So going from application for offer of conditions from authority right through to the defects liability period. Next is scheduling. So in this chapter, it's all about how to effectively review a schedule, the significance of accuracy in scheduling, the tools that are generally used to generate schedule quantities, and then things like rollover contracts, extra over, variations and provisional items and what all of them are. Then in the last chapter in the document, we have advanced design, right? And this has to do with a few key concepts around lock grading. So things like what are acceptable grades, setbacks and retaining walls, and then other concepts like drainage pipe cover calculations, sawtoothing and what that is, electrical designs, and then also efficient earthworks design. Okay, so that's Unit 1. And again, I'll show you the actual document so you can see everything that's included in that after I've run through this summary. Next into Unit 2, so the road and finished surface design unit. The first chapter of this unit is the survey preparation chapter. And I've put in brackets the number of lessons in each of the chapters there, so you can see how much we do cover in each of these chapters. So this chapter has 7 lessons. And it covers importing the feature survey data, triangulating it, producing contours, sharing the data, so creating a design project and then importing the plan of subdivision so that we can begin the design. So this is the site here. It's a real project in Warragul, so there's 82 lots. And we have an existing development to the south and private property to the north. So it's big enough and has enough roads for us to cover a lot of the different design situations that we do. And then it's also quite interesting with the grading requirements as well. Right, next into the super alignment design chapter, and I'll go through these pretty quick because I will show you the spot platform in a few minutes, so you'll be able to see the exact names of the lessons in each chapter. But this chapter is for the creation of the horizontal and vertical geometry of our reference string super alignments. So our road center lines and curb returns, where we cover different super alignment tools for different roads. Then the next chapter is a big one, the MTF chapter. So in this one, we create an MTF, apply it, remove links using modifiers, create a parking bay, grade our intersection, and you can see that's just a few of the options that we show. There's 15 lessons in that one, so there's a lot to cover in the MTF. Next, stormwater coordination and lock grading. So what we do here is coordinate with the third unit, which is for stormwater design. So once we've done our initial lock grading, which is at the end of the MTF chapter, we then hand our design over to the stormwater designer, and they'll conduct the stormwater design. So this course actually replicates that process of going back and forth with the stormwater designer to achieve a compliant overall design. So it includes freeboard creation and lock grading and things like that. So after this chapter, we've essentially got a completed, finished surface design. Right, we then have the element method chapter, and this one shows how to create our super alignment horizontal and vertical geometry using the element method as opposed to the IP method, which we use in the super alignment design chapter earlier. Next we have pavement design. So this is another big one because there's a lot of new tools in version 15 of 12D model which we want to show off, and we show how to create pavement tri-meshes for our roads, footpaths and curb returns, and then ultimately create our subgrade tin and perform the volumetric analysis. And then we have the last chapter of this unit, which is the outputs and plotting chapter. So this chapter covers all the outputs you'll need from 12D for your plans. So your pavement contours, fill boundaries, lot surface levels, chainage labels, curb setouts, and then your plots, so your cross section and long section plots. Right, and that completes unit 2. Then in the third unit for stormwater design, the first chapter is stormwater plan layout. So in this chapter, Rob Graham from 12D, he goes over the placement of the stormwater network and the tools in 12D that allow you to place your pits and pipes in the correct location, both in the street and also in easements. In the next catchment areas chapter, it's all about creating street catchments and lot catchments, and then ultimately linking those catchments to your pits. In the rational method hydrology chapter, we then collect our rainfall data, calculate our runoff coefficients and times of concentrations, and then ultimately run the rational method analysis. Next, in pipe grading and sizing, we actually give the pipes the relevant cover and grade and drops through pits. We calculate pipe losses, pit losses, and then ultimately using all that, we size the pipe network. In services, we then consider the other utilities or services within the road. So where are the water, the electrical, the comms? So where are they sitting in the road and how do they affect each other? And then ultimately, how do they affect the depth required of the stormwater network? Like in Unit 2, we then have an outputs chapter. So we produce plan drawings, long sections, we calculate quantities for tenders, and then we also create our pit schedule. All right, and then the last chapter of this unit is flooded widths and gap flows. So this is where Rob covers stormwater design for major events. So considering gap flows, where the water is backing up at any sag locations and overtopping the crests of the road. So Rob does all the necessary modeling and analysis for that in 12D. And that is Unit 3. So that brings me to the end of my elevator pitch. But as for how to register for the course, you'll need to go to civilandsurveying.com, which is where you can go to register for either instructor-led or self-paced online training 12D model courses. Okay, and then the ALDE course is available, because it's a self-paced course, it's available through the self-paced online training tab there. Within that tab, you'll then need to navigate to the course and pick register. You'll then need to fill out your details and then pay for the course. So the course is $2,000 plus GST for non-ALDE members. But if you're an ALDE member or from an ALDE member company, there is a coupon code that can be applied at checkout, which is for a discount of $500 plus GST. So the cost is $1,500 plus GST for ALDE members. Okay, and this discount code has been sent to all ALDE member companies, and there's a link in the course description on the website to the ALDE website where you can see who that coupon code has been sent to at your company, so you can track that code down. And then lastly, just some thank yous to a lot of people really who have been involved in putting the course together. From the beginning, I want to thank Sihon Palu, who was the ALDE president at the time. Thank you for working with us to get this course underway, and also for providing a project and a process for the development of the course. To Anthony Grotsky, the current ALDE president, thank you for continuing to run with and promote the course as it's continued to be developed. Thank you as well to all the past and current members of the ALDE training subcommittee, really for the huge amount of time that's been invested in the course over the last few years. So Kim Din, Shane Young, Mark Fleming, Julian Ferrugia, Chris Cathcart, Rebecca Saber. So a lot of people have had their hands on this course. So thank you to all of you for providing your input and feedback, and of course the content for the course as well. To all the beta testers for providing their feedback after the initial recordings were done. And then lastly, from the 12D model side, thank you to Lee Gregory and Alan Gray for your investment and commitment to making this course a reality. Thank you to Rob Graham for putting up with me over the last few years and really working tirelessly to tie everything together and get it all as polished as it is. To Eva Voronina for doing really so much work on the Spot platform, including the lesson creation and the quiz creation and organization. And then lastly to Matt Stevens and Soon Tay for your guidance with the course along the way. This course really has been a huge undertaking, and I'm so grateful that we can now share it with all of you. So with that high level information sorted, we'll now take a look at the details of the course. So I'll just jump over to my browser. So if you haven't seen the Spot platform before, this is what it'll look like after you've registered for the ALDE course and have logged in. If we go into Unit 1 of the ALDE course, so each unit of the course has its own module here in your My Learning section. In this unit, you can see the names of the chapters across the top there, and those are those chapters I covered earlier. So each of these chapters contains a short video which just gives some background on essentially how to go through the land development design guidelines and what each chapter is about. Now, each of these videos were created by Kim Din at Marshall and Shane Young at Beveridge Williams. So a big thank you to the two of you for producing and recording those videos. Now, within this introduction video, which introduces the course, at the bottom of the content here, there's a banner, okay, and this banner takes you to the Introduction to Land Development Design Guidelines document. So this is the document I was talking about earlier that contains all of that information with regard to the input documents and reports and standards that are typically expected to be followed when you're doing land development. So just, yeah, I guess scrolling past the preface here, I won't show you any more than the contents page now because we want you to sign up to the course to get it. But we've again got those same chapters, and you can read here the different parts of those chapters that I again touched on briefly earlier. So, for example, in the land development process through the eyes of a designer chapter, there's content for due diligence, preliminary cost estimates, permit applications, so what's required for them, master planning, functional design, detailed design, tender, construction, titles. So really from start to finish, how does a typical project run and what are the main steps? So that new engineers can know what to expect when a project is starting up, or maybe they're coming on into a project from somewhere in the middle, so they know what the next step is going to be. Okay, and then after that, the majority of the document really is dedicated to functional layout plans. And this is where we really get into the detail as to what are the key inputs that go into the various elements of the functional layout plans. So we start by looking at what is actually required to be presented on the plans. And then with that understanding, we go back and look at the documents that inform that decision making. So in that input documents section, which you can see is 20 pages, we talk about documents like the PSP, the development contributions plan, the planning permit and the process behind that, preliminary servicing advice, developing a servicing strategy, the traffic impact assessment, drainage scheme, stormwater management strategy, and the list goes on. So I haven't mentioned all of them, but for each of these documents, these guidelines cover who is responsible for creating that document, what is the purpose of the document, and as designers, what is the key information that we draw from that document to input into the design, right? And then also ultimately who approves the document. So a lot goes into this process, obviously, which is why a resource like this was felt to be necessary from ALDE. Okay, so after that, there are the other input documents. So the key standards that we use. So for example, we pull the typical road cross sections from the PSP and produce the functional design plans and go through the submission requirements. Right, and then after that, I'm not going to touch on all of this in detail because you can read the names of the sections now or later when we post the webinar, but we've got those chapters on water design, scheduling, and then also those advanced design considerations. So that's the document. It's very thorough and it's really meant as a reference manual to be able to refer back to during the course, as well as when you go through your own projects. So I'll close that one. Okay, and then back at the top, for each unit, we also have a feedback chapter. So this is where you can submit any feedback you have about the unit, just to help us improve the unit and the course in general moving forward. So you'll see that feedback with our other units too. Okay, so that is unit 1. If I go back to my dashboard, we then, after unit 1, progress to the 12D model part of the course, which are units 2 and 3. Right, and as part of your registration, you do also automatically get added to the 12D model 15 fundamentals course, which you can use if you haven't used 12D model version 15 before and you need to cover the fundamentals first. But it is optional to do that one. So we'll go into unit 2. Okay, so like in unit 1, unit 2 has the chapters running across the top here, but unlike unit 1, units 2 and 3 also have lessons within the chapters. So in this introduction chapter, and this is the same for all the other 12D model spot courses, we've got an introduction video for the unit. Then we've got a lesson where we provide links to download the most current version of 12D model, download the data set for the course, and then install the nodes file that you get provided with the course, which again is valid for a whole year. And then also in this spot tools lesson, we show you that within this overview lesson, at the very bottom here, there's another banner that you can select in here. Okay, and that'll open this document that details all the chapters and also importantly, all the individual lessons within each chapter. And then also the individual topics within each lesson. So the first lesson of the first survey preparation chapter is this import survey data lesson. Okay, and the individual topics in that lesson are shown here, as well as the timestamps in the lesson. So what this helps with is if there's a specific topic that you want to review, you can do a search on this document and you can find the relevant lesson and the relevant time in the lesson, and then easily navigate to that lesson. So each of these headings here is a link. So if we pick that import survey data link there, you'll see that will take us to that lesson within the unit. So this survey preparation chapter is all about importing the feature survey data, creating a tin, creating contours, sharing the data to a design project that we create, and then import the planner subdivision before we then go and review what's required of the functional and detailed design submissions. And going back to that document that we just saw, within each video here, there is this chapters button, okay, and that has all the individual topics within the lesson, which are the same as from that document that we saw just before. So you can pick them from there and you'll be taken to that point in the video. So it's all really easy to navigate and get around to what you need to see. Okay, then in the next super alignment design chapter, this is where we cover horizontal and vertical geometry creation of our super alignments. So using the IP method. Okay, and you can see the names of the lessons there. These are the names of the roads in the development. And we've got a lesson for each of those because we use various different super alignment tools to create the geometry for those road center lines. In the MTF chapter, as I said before, this is quite a big one. There's a lot to go over in the MTF. So templates, creating an MTF, applying the MTF, things like seed MTF files, chainage aliases. We do parking bay creation, special chainage files, intersection pavement grading. So importantly, again, I do just want to stress that it's not just the basics in this course. There's things in here that even experienced 12D model users will get a lot from or learn new things from. Now, if you haven't seen the Spot platform before or know how the lessons look, if we go into one of these lessons, the Apply MTF lesson is a good example that I like to use. If I just play the video here, you'll see there's a quick introduction. This is the unit that I teach, so that's me. But then I will disappear. So after a quick introduction, we then begin in 12D. And it happens pretty quickly in this lesson, which is why I use it. But ultimately within each of the lessons, we get to a point where we're not doing anything on the screen and perhaps we're just explaining how something works or clarifying some information. You'll see there, I'll pop up and I'll give some context as to why we're doing what we're doing, or to just give some extra information. And this is really to try and improve engagement and just generally make the videos a little bit easier to watch, because we know you'll potentially be watching quite a few lessons in one sitting, and we want to keep you engaged. But you'll see there, I'll then disappear and we continue on in 12D. And that's generally how the lessons run and how the content is delivered. Now, once you've completed the video or the lesson, each lesson also has a quiz, which is at the bottom of the page here. So you can enter the quiz for this one. And we've got some multi-choice and true-false questions. So these quizzes that we've set up are knowledge check quizzes. So you can attempt them as many times as you want, because with these, we really just want to ensure you're picking up on the main ideas from the lessons. We're not trying to stump you or confuse you here. We just want to reinforce what to take away from the lessons. So I'll just start the quiz here. And I guess to demonstrate this, if I do get this question wrong, so and say false, we get the red line here. And what you're able to do is you're able to click on the screen here. Okay, and the lesson will begin from where that question is answered. So you can watch that part of the lesson again, and once you've maybe realized your mistake, you can return to the quiz. Okay, and then you can continue on with the quiz. Right, and it's the completion of each of these quizzes that ultimately leads to you receiving your certificate of completion for the course. So that is how we control course completion. Right, and that's the quizzes, so I'll just jump out of that. I guess continuing on with our chapters, again going over this quickly just so you can see the names of each of the lessons. The next one is Stormwater Coordination and Lock Grading. So once we've done our initial lock grading, which is done at the end of the previous chapter, we then hand our road and lot design over to the stormwater designer. They'll conduct the stormwater design with that design, then get back to us as a road designer with the changes that need to be made. So you can see here this chapter covers the nature strip crossfall, so increasing the grade of the nature strip, the creation of batters into the lots for freeboard, and then we cover a few different methods for lock grading. So after this chapter, we've essentially got a completed finished surface design. We then have the element method chapter, and this one shows how to create our super alignment horizontal and vertical geometry using the element method. So the aim of this chapter is to showcase to you some advanced tools like setting up string references and computators and chains. So all those things that can really speed up your design and particularly your design amendments. The next chapter is pavement design. So in this one, we create pavement trimeshes for our roads, footpaths and curb returns. We create pavements from tins, then tins from trimeshes, so tins from the bottom of pavements. Then ultimately create our subgrade tin, perform our volumetric analysis. And then there's also additional videos showing the creation of drainage trenches, the type B fill creation required by the EDCM standard drawings, and then also the road pavement creation in expansive soils, because in the EDCM requirements there's a non-expansive and an expansive option, and they're quite a bit different with how the layers are all put together. So we show an example of that. Right, then the last chapter of this unit is the outputs and plotting chapter. And you can see this covers hopefully all the outputs you'll need from 12D for your plans. So the creation of your pavement contours, fill boundaries, lot surface levels, change labels, and then all your plots. So quick sheet plots, cross section, long section plots, and then also your curb return setouts. After that, we've then got some closing comments, so just a nice wrap up of the unit, and then again a place to leave your feedback if you have any for the unit. Now we know that not everyone is just going to go through the course from start to finish at once, so what we've also done to help with people who may bounce around a little bit and maybe address parts of the design perhaps as they become relevant to their work. If I pick one of these lessons here, for example, there's an option at the bottom here to download the projects as they are at the beginning of that lesson. So because this unit is quite long, there is about 20 hours of content in this unit. If you need the data to follow along with a specific lesson that's later in the unit, we don't want you to have to go through everything else beforehand to get to that point to then be able to follow along. So we give you the projects, we show you how to get those projects set up, and then you actually have, importantly, a data set to follow along with in 12D for any of the lessons in the course. Okay, so that's Unit 2, and if we go back to our dashboard and again into Unit 3, which is for Stormwater Design. So in the same style as Unit 2, there's quite a few chapters. Again, there's an introduction, and we have the same instructions for downloading the data set and installing the nodes file, as well as accessing specific lessons and data sets. Then in the first chapter, Stormwater Plan Layout, I'll go through these nice and quick, just so you can see the lesson names. So this is for the layout of the network and placing the pits and pipes in the correct location in the street and also in the easements. In catchment areas, we create street catchments automatically, then draw catchments. We link those catchments to our inlets, and then the same sort of process for lock catchments as well. In rational method hydrology, we collect the rainfall data from the Bureau of Meteorology. We calculate the runoff coefficients and times of concentrations, run the rational method analysis, and then produce hydrology and hydraulic reports. In pipe grading and sizing, we apply the relevant pipe cover, pipe grade, and drops through pits. Then calculate our pipe friction losses, pit losses, and then perform the pipe sizing. In services, we position the other road services in plan first, and then we create them as 3D pipes. We then grade the stormwater network against those services, and then perform our 3D clash detection. In the outputs chapter, we produce plan drawings, long section drawings, quantity or calculate our quantities for quantity reports. So that's our pipe and pit quantities, and then finally produce a pit schedule and detailed drawings. And then the last chapter is flooded widths and gap flows. And in here, you can see it's quite a detailed chapter. But Rob produces the flooded widths for the 20% AEP and for the 1% AEP, so that the gap flows can be calculated. Then he produces the flooded widths for the gap flows. He considers backwater calculations and intersection and crest overtopping, and then considers a few other specific locations in the development too. So that one's quite a detailed chapter there. Okay, and then like the other units, we've again got some closing comments. So again, another unit wrap up and a place to leave your feedback. And that's it. That's a rundown of how the ALDE and 12D model course looks and what's included in it. So we can now take any questions.
Thanks for that, Cameron. Yes, we've had a couple of questions through that I'd like to go through live. So Sarah in Brisbane would like to know, can the course be used with design standards other than the EDCM?
Thanks, Sarah. Yes, so we would like to think so. So with the when we're going through the lessons in the course, we do make specific reference to the EDCM standards. But if you want to use standards different to those, it would just be a matter of substituting those other standards in. So yes, it would rely on you to have the knowledge of those other standards, because we do specifically mention EDCM. But yes, hopefully you'll be able to.
Great. John in Hobart asked, how do you cover things that can be designed in different ways?
Yes, so that's a good question. I guess we did come up against, well, not come up against, but we did find that when we were working with the various ALDE member companies that we were getting feedback that different companies and even in some situations different design managers within each company would expect things to be done in a different way. So in terms like the design elements done in a different way. So within the course, the direction that we've gone with that is we're not, I guess, telling you the correct way to do something, because for various elements like lock grading, I guess, is a good example. An intersection and curb return design is another example where we were getting a lot of different methods that you could adopt. It's not our intention to tell you which one is the correct method, but more when those times do come up to say, check with your design manager. So this is an opportunity to have a conversation with your design manager about what their expectation is for how you design that part of the development, so that you do it in that way. So we do show a way, but it's not necessarily the way that you're going to be expected to do that at your company. So yeah, we do actively say, have that conversation with your manager.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll just take one more live today. So Ben in Sydney said, is there any additional cost for the manager access, and how does that work?
No, so there's no additional cost. So essentially how it works is on the registration form when you're signing up to the course on the Civil and Surveying Institute page, you'll see that there's just a couple of extra fields for the name and email address of the manager for that trainee, and they will be signed up for a spot account if they don't have one. Just like the trainee, they won't be provided a nodes file like the trainee would. So that is one difference, but there's no extra cost to doing that. And then, yeah, I guess how that looks is, well, we've done that so that, as I mentioned during the presentation, so that a manager can monitor how a trainee progresses through the course, and potentially you might have 3 or 4 trainees or of your staff who you're monitoring. So the idea is that you will be assigned as a manager to each of those people. So I guess how that looks, I don't have that set up for Unit 3 here, but I do have it set up for Unit 1. So essentially, what we've got here, you'll go into Unit 1, you'd be able to do this for Unit 2 and Unit 3 as well. And then as a manager, you'll go into this grades section up the top here. Okay, and you'll see this is the name that's been given to the manager just for this example, and you have each of your trainees within this grid here. Okay, and you can see which of the quizzes have been completed. So yeah, this way you can monitor the progression through the course. Okay, and as I said, it'll be the same for Unit 2 and Unit 3 as well, which have a lot more quizzes than Unit 1.
Thank you. So I think we'll leave the questions there for today. Thank you very much, Cameron. So the recording of today's webinar will be available in coming days through the webinars page on our website and on our 12D Model YouTube and Vimeo channels. Keep an eye on our emails and social media for details of future webinars. We'll probably squeeze one more in December and then recommence the series in the new year. And if you haven't seen it yet, the dates for the 2026 12D Tech Forum have now been released, and there's a special discount available for a limited time. So if you're thinking about attending that, check out techforum.com for details of that one too. That concludes today's presentation. Thank you all for attending, and we hope to see you at future webinars.
Thanks very much, everyone.